Hi guys, Carrie Cross with the Cross Group at Intero Real Estate, and I'm here with my friend Ed. Ed, will you introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name's Ed Younger. I'm an attorney in Brentwood. I do estate planning and business law. I've been practicing for about 5 years, and a year ago in May I started my own practice called the Law Office of Edward Younger.
Very cool. And we have some really cool things coming up with Ed, so really great information. I'm totally excited about this, but first I have to apologize for my last week's mess that I had. I had a lender on that was fabulous, and it was some great information if you're thinking about buying a home. So if you missed that, I did not go live with it, but I did post it on our business page, so the Cross Group. Go ahead and like that page, go down and search on there. Definitely check out last week's live, which wasn't live, but it was still a video, all about some great 1% loans and even 0% loans. So that was really good information. So with that being said, we've got Ed here today, who's fabulous. I want to say hi to Mark and Vicky and Mom and Dad and everybody. I also would like to wish a happy birthday to my cousin Chastity and Pete and Jules. Happy birthday to you all, and anybody else that I might have missed. Let me know it's your birthday. As we go through this, definitely give us some likes and loves. If you hear some information that you like, ask any questions that you want Ed to answer. We've got an attorney here, people, free advice, so this is really awesome. So first thing is, so when you're owning real estate, what advice do you have for people buying?
So as an estate planner, a lot of my work focuses on living trusts. So if somebody owns real estate in California, it's really almost a no-brainer that they need to hold their property in a revocable living trust. And the first and foremost reason to do that is so that you can avoid probate. So there are other benefits to a trust that I think we'll talk about today as we go through here.
Right.
But really, when you look at the cost of going to probate compared to setting up a trust and the protection that a trust provides you, I really do strongly recommend everybody who owns real estate put together a living trust, put together a proper living trust. And there's really no question of the value in that comes across once you do that.
Well, okay, and you kind of touched on the fact that you want to avoid probate.
Right.
So why don't we explain what probate is?
Okay. So probate is a court process where the court takes a look at the decedent, and that's the name for the person who's passed away. The court makes sure the decedent's expenses are all paid, that their taxes are all paid, and then ultimately appoints somebody to be the executor and carry out the distribution of the estate. And the distribution will be done according to the will. If somebody has prepared a will, whatever instructions are in the will will be followed. But if there's not a will, then the court is going to use the rules called intestate succession. So the California has a set of rules that dictate who will receive your property. There's an order and a chart,
Okay.
Based on whether you have a spouse or children or parents and
Right.
then aunts and uncles. So unfortunately, there's an adage in my industry that says everybody has a plan, and it could just be the state's plan if you don't do your own. So
That's not good. We don't want that.
No.
Okay. So what is the downside of probate?
Okay.
Let us know what that goes, that process.
Historically, probate has been how everything is done, and most people had said that was just the cost of passing away. You had to go through that. But there really are some negatives to that, and I talked about the cost.
Right.
The probate fees are based on the value of the estate, the gross value of the estate. Okay. So an attorney is legally able to charge 4% of the first 100,000, 3% of the next 100,000, and then 2% up to $1 million. From $1 million to $9 million, you get another 1%. So I kind of just run some numbers in this area. If you own a $600,000 home, the probate fees will be about $15,000 to the attorney. There's also several $1,000s worth of court costs. So apart from cost, other downsides to going to probate involve it's a lack of privacy. So everything is done on the public record. You're down in the courthouse in Martinez, and all of your bills are laid out in front of everyone, and all your assets are on display. It's also time consuming. it takes a couple months to even get the process started and get appointed, and then really to close it out, you're probably looking at a year to 2 years typically. There are notorious cases that go on even longer, but your beneficiaries might not have liquid assets to cash to pay mortgages and insurances during this process. So it really is time consuming, and the thing is, it's completely avoidable. If you set up a plan properly, you don't have to go to probate.
Absolutely. And I see that all the time. We see a lot of probate sales and they take forever. We have a buyer and the buyer doesn't want to wait anymore. So they lose those. They end up, the market shifts, and like you said, the cost that the family has to put out while they're waiting for the house to be sold or whatever that is, that it does get really crazy. So you want to avoid that.
I've actually seen some homes go into foreclosure through that process because, if you really just had a home and there wasn't liquid assets to pay for those, then that could end up happening. So.
Right. Well, thank you, George and Lori and Allie, for joining. So I know you guys are all on here. Definitely give some likes and loves. Ask any questions you might have. We have some more things that we're going to give you some information on. So how does a trust avoid probate?
Okay. So a trust is essentially a contract. It's a contract in which the settlor, that's the name of the person that owns the property before it goes into the trust, and that's usually a husband and a wife or an individual, and they put everything in control of the trustee. So typically when if you were to set up a trust, you would be both the settlor and the trustee until that point in time when you're no longer able to act as the trustee.
Okay.
So your trust has instructions that say if you can no longer be in control, who then would be the successor? And so it's a legal fiction. It's a legal entity. The trust survives past the life of the settlor, and it has instructions on how to distribute the estate. And because the property is not in your name when you pass away, it's in the name of the trust, and the trust is still living. There's no need for probate.
Gotcha. Okay, so
it's a legal fiction kind of.
I like it. No, that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
So what other benefits besides avoiding probate is there to have this stuff in order?
Yeah, there are a ton of other benefits. The probate one is the low-hanging fruit. One of the things I like to point out to people is that a trust can help protect your beneficiaries from themselves. So my children are actually a little too young at this point to receive an inheritance. So if something was to happen to my wife and I, our trust has provisions that would keep the asset under control of the trustee until the children are appropriate age. I had one mom who thought that 60 was old enough for her son to get his inheritance. So that's my record for a mom that didn't really trust her son. But normally, typically, we're seeing 25, 30 years old that the kids could basically, if they needed something before then, the trustee can give it to them, but they don't get their inheritance until they're at a certain age. Trusts also have protections in there that might talk about if one of your beneficiaries is having a creditor problem or bankruptcy or something, you might not want them to receive their inheritance until that issue clears up.
True.
Sometimes divorce is in that as well. So your trust should have language that addresses that. A trust also protects you if you become incapacitated. So we all pass away, but some of us will become incapacitated. Maybe it's a car accident that causes a traumatic thing. The rate of Alzheimer's and dementia is skyrocketing. So we're all facing this possibility. And that's another situation where if you don't have a plan and you become incapacitated, you're going to end up in the probate court getting a conservatorship. And again, it's you're having your affairs handled by the court during your lifetime in that case. So it's, again, unnecessary, and you can avoid that by having a trust. The other thing you can do with a trust is maximize the ability to get the best property tax treatment and capital gains tax treatment if you pass property when you die, basically. So one thing I see people who are trying to avoid creating a trust, they do is they put their kids on title to the house during their lifetime. And the problem with that is now if the kid goes through bankruptcy or has a traffic accident and gets sued, now mom and dad's house or mom's house is tied up with the kid. You also you don't get what's called a step up in basis if you put your kid on title during your lifetime. And if somebody's going to inherit a home and then sell it, Doing so after you get it through a property passing on death is going to save, possibly tens of thousands of dollars in capital gains taxes.
Right.
For a few wealthy people, a trust is also important for estate tax planning. Current laws in the United States right now is that each person can exempt $5.4 million before they have to start paying death tax or estate tax to the federal government. Anything above that is a 40%. The government takes it.
40%.
Yeah, and we've already paid tax on it all of our life.
Right.
As we've invested it, we paid tax. Spouses can combine that. So really, if you're a married couple and your estate is under $11 million, there's no estate tax problem.
Okay.
Historically, that number was a lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
It is a political number. So sometimes tax planning becomes part of this, but it's for very few people.
So Mark and Allie are asking what the cost is. Is there a flat cost to get this handled, or is that on a case by case? How does that work?
So I do all of my estate planning on a flat rate fee.
Okay.
I don't want my clients to be surprised about what their fee will be. So when you come to meet with me, even before your first consultation, I say that number. I'll tell you that number by text right now. I don't want to say it live on air.
Okay.
But I do believe it's affordable. I think
It's affordable. We'll message you both.
Yeah. And it is flat rate, and it's comprehensive. I don't just do a trust. I do a will. I do a power of attorney, a healthcare directive. I help do deeds to transfer the properties into there and give you letters to take to the bank. So.
Well, and that's one thing. So when you do, if you don't already have one and you do one, it has to change title on everything. And so that is sometimes a cost thing. And so the fact that you lump that all in together is a really nice thing, because you don't have to go out now, go find a title to do that. And you take care of the whole thing.
Yes. And I've seen where, I'm competing against the legal Zooms out there and the trust mills that meet down at the veterans office. And I know that I've seen, one of the common problems I see sometimes is that people get the trust, but they don't actually do the funding of the trust. They don't do the deeds. They don't go to the bank. And at that point, really you haven't helped yourself out by doing that shortcut.
And I have to say, guys, I've done a lot of business dealings with Ed. He is fabulous. He takes care of everything. So you could rest assured that when you do something through him, it is getting the entire process done. Where, like you say, LegalZoom and some of those, yes, you can kind of do some stuff on your own, but you don't have that full package. And when you pass and you get, your children find out that we still have to go through probate and all of that was for nothing, that's what you definitely don't want to have happen. So that's
a really sad situation, and I've had that, and I do what I can to help people, but when you're in probate, you're in probate.
And so what advice do you give to buyers that maybe are considering this?
Right. Well, a lot of times I find that if you just buy your first home or your dream home, you've spent a lot of your capital, and so one of the things I just want to impress on people is, you've just come up with closing costs, you have to furnish your place, probably put in some landscaping.
Absolutely.
People don't really have a ton of money at that point. I just want people to plant that seed, that idea that says, okay, we own a home now, we really should do this, we should get serious about this. It's kind of funny, most of my clients, when they talk to me, say, we've been putting this off for a long time, and we knew we needed to do this, and when we're done, they say, oh, we just feel so great, we have peace of mind. So that's what I love hearing. I don't like hearing the, we didn't do a plan and something happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wish my parents would have.
Right.
I wish, that happens a lot.
I've actually seen kids that pay for, there's a lot of different reasons people are reluctant to do this. I have a friend.
I don't like to talk about it.
I have a friend that won't do it because he thinks if he does it, it's his own mortality, right? And it is sensitive subjects. The questionnaires and the questions that we go through during my process, really, you have to look at your own mortality and maybe sometimes look at your family too and think, who really deserves this?
Any other real estate issues you see with estate planning practices and things like that?
Well, one of the things I see with, sometimes people ask if a trust can protect against, be a shield against creditors, and it's a common question, and in fact it does not. A revocable living trust, under the eyes of the law, even though you don't own it for probate purposes, you do own it for your creditors' purposes. Okay. So if you're going through bankruptcy or whatnot, then the trust doesn't shield your assets from creditors. Sometimes if people have those issues and they want to limit their liability, we do talk about setting up an LLC or a corporation. And some people own investment homes or not retirement homes. They're rental homes inside an LLC to get some creditor protection.
Okay.
I also think it's important to realize that a living trust doesn't affect your income taxes. While you're alive, you just file normal taxes just like you normally do. I tell people all the time, you'll see some differences in your property tax statement will come in the name of the trust, your bank statements will come in the name of the trust, but it really doesn't change your personal finances during your lifetime. Once you become incapacitated or pass away, then there are some administrative things that need to happen with that. Another thing I commonly see is people who did trusts 10, 15, 20 years ago. Those trusts might be outdated.
Sure.
The laws have changed to where the type of trust that was done in the past may not be the most appropriate now given our current laws. And so I encourage people to get periodic checkups on their trust and things like that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, and another common thing I want people to understand is that estate planning is not just for the wealthy. Really, once somebody's 18, they would benefit from a power of attorney and a healthcare directive. Even if you don't own any assets, those two documents alone could avoid you having to go to a conservatorship. So basically, just even if you don't have any assets at all, there's some very basic things you can do to have a plan. And you know, once you get into the real estate, then I think the trust is a no-brainer.
Perfect. And you just answered Haley's question. Does she need one? She's thinking about buying a house. And so she could start with the one half, and then once she gets the home, she could put that into the trust. And hi, Jamie and Gina. Hello. How are you guys? I haven't seen you in forever. I hope the family's doing really well. Okay, so where are we at? What other questions do we need to answer?
Well, I wanted to make one point about single persons who, if in general, if you are married, the surviving spouse is going to have a relatively easy ability to get control over everything. You know, even sometimes the homes are in one spouse's name, and if you're married, you have almost a built-in layer of protection as long as one of you survives.
Okay.
So single people are especially vulnerable to probate and conservatorships. They don't have that spousal transfer laws that California provides.
Okay.
And that applies to registered domestic partners as well. So recent widows, widowers, people going through divorce, or anyone that might be single might be especially in need of this planning.
Okay, perfect. Okay, any other common issues? Anything that you see that we might be able to shed some light on?
Well, I also have done quite a bit of landlord law in the past.
Oh, he does a lot of landlord law.
I used to be
He's great at landlord law.
an eviction practitioner. I'm getting out of that and focusing more on the estate planning right now. But I've seen a lot of situations in there where homes in a trust, mom needs to go into the nursing facility with a properly formatted trust. The successor trustee can rent the place, can possibly sell it if they need to, and things like that. One thing I would say, it's very frustrating when I get calls for emergency probates. A realtor that goes into contract with somebody that's not on legal title, I think, is taking a big risk.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, this doesn't come up until, a lot of times, I think the preliminary title report is run after they're in contract.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so if this might be a tip for your industry, is to nip those in the bud and try and find that out early on.
Absolutely.
If you're dealing with somebody that mentions they're in a trust or dealing through a probate, shine the spotlight on that and get those issues cleared up quickly.
Absolutely, and it's important that we all communicate well with our sellers, because that's something that I'm actually going through a situation right now where they bought the place in a tax auction, which is different than a regular auction, and so there's some issues there. We started that conversation. So yeah, just it's very important that if you are selling a piece of property, that you let the agent know all the ins and outs of what has transpired, so that we can give you the best advice and know what the next steps are going to be, because you don't want to go through all that work to get an offer, and then now you have to go start a court proceeding, which you could have already been started.
Right.
So.
And I think, your relationship with the title companies and
Absolutely.
you being on point will help that.
Absolutely.
I don't get that problem with tarot agents.
No, that's perfect. And Alyssa, this is the guy you could thank for helping with your eviction process. So he definitely works really good with landlord-tenant law as well. So if you are landlords or tenants and you have some of those kind of questions, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Do we still have a little time?
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll just mention a little bit about my process and how I go through it. Usually it's 2 meetings. The first meeting, my clients will fill out a questionnaire that they've done at home, and they try and think about who they would like to be, maybe in charge of their kids, or be the successor trustees and things like that. Then we have that meeting and we talk through and I answer questions, and I make sure that they understand fully all of the answers they've filled out, and that they're comfortable with the direction we're going with the documents. Okay. Then about 2 to 3 weeks later, I will bring the clients back in. We sign everything. I'm a notary, so all the documents are completely executed that day on the signing date. My clients get an organized binder that has every document in it. They also get a PDF of every document on a digital thumb drive so that they can have some redundancy and backups. And it takes about 3 weeks, 2 appointments. I'm located right in Brentwood, and sometimes there is a need for house calls if somebody's not ambulatory, or hospital visits and things like that. So I'm open to doing all that. And I really try and make it as simple and painless as possible. So.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you have one and then you want to make some changes, whether it's your kids go to somebody else now, or now they're older, or you've got a new asset, is there like little things that you do throughout the time, or how does that part work?
Yeah, I would say that if you have a big milestone, wedding, kids reaching a certain age where you think there can be maybe the trustee or things like that, it's good to have a periodic review of your trust. Some attorneys say every year. I think that's a little overkill. I think 3 to 5 years. If something major changes in your life, then it's a good time.
Yeah.
And what we do in that is maybe do an amendment, maybe do a new power of attorney. The nice thing about a living trust, a revocable living trust, is you can amend it anytime you want up until your incapacity or your death. So if you have a kid that's not behaving, that you don't want to give the inheritance to, you still have that right.
Mom and Dad, get off of here.
No, I was looking at Haley.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Haley.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
Yeah, so reviews and checkups are good, and it's not something where it's pretty minuscule in terms of the cost of that. I'm not going to make a ton of my income doing that, but it's good to do, and it's important to keep people up. And then the other phase of trust is trust administration. So there will come a point when a successor trustee takes over, and they're going to get this binder, and they're going to get these documents, and they're going to see your assets and say, okay, well, what do I do? Right. You get a little legal advice at that point. I usually sit with families for an hour or two, get them pointed in the right direction, and so you're not on your own. Any estate planning attorney can help you with the administration of that trust, but that's something that I tell my clients. I'd be happy to help the family when the time comes to carry this out.
That's great advice as well, because now you have this information. What do you do with it? So that's really good. And we will message you and let you know what the trust review cost is. Anybody else have any questions, definitely ask them. I think we've covered a lot of information, so please go back. You'll probably want to watch this again. Message us or leave a comment, and we will message you with answering any of your further questions. Definitely look up Ed Younger. He's in Brentwood. Contact me. I'll give you his information. He's fabulous. We do a lot of work with him, unfortunately, but it's good to have somebody that is very knowledgeable to handle all those kind of crazy situations. So I think that's it, right?
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.